Alright, so I've been getting a lot of questions in the comments of some of my recent videos about how to manage your time as a student, particularly for those of you sitting your GCSEs and A-levels this year. So without further ado, let's get into tip number one. This is the one I've been preaching in a bunch of videos, and it's to learn how to study efficiently and effectively. I think most people at this point have their go-to study methods whenever exam season rolls around for them. Maybe you make notes or you make flashcards. And I don't want you to change any study methods that you already think are working well for you, but I do want to raise the point that whatever you are doing, make sure to always be actively implementing the techniques of active recall and spaced repetition. I won't go super in depth on these topics because they've been talked about at length on other YouTube videos, so I'll link a couple that explain them in the description below if you're interested. But just know that revision isn't meant to be easy, because if it's actually difficult, that's when it means that your brain's actually making connections and you're actually having to think about stuff to improve your problem solving skills. It's super common now to see all the videos about studying 10, 12, 16 hours a day, and it's really easy to think that you should be doing the same. But I'm here to tell you that it's most likely not true. I feel like if you think that you can do it, then go ahead, I don't want to stop you. But I'm willing to bet that for 90% of the people who say they study that long, either they're not studying that long, or majority of the hours spent studying are actually not that effective. So my point is to spend the time that you actually are studying as effectively as possible, so that when you're not studying, you can actually be resting. Because if you're doing any revision that's actually going to be useful to improving your grades, then you're going to need that rest. Work also fills out the time that you allocate for it. That's just Parkinson's law. So if there's a task you want to get done and you want to get it done quick, then try allocating less time so that it takes up less of your overall day. Alright, and while we're on the topic of studying effectively and efficiently, I want to talk to you guys about the sponsors of this video, lesson-wise. If you're worried about your GCSEs or A-levels, then listen up, because what if I told you you could try expert-led group lessons completely for free? From the 27th of August to the 21st of September, Lesson-wise are running 3 weeks of free online trial classes for Year 11 Maths, English, Biology, Chemistry, and Physics, led by real teachers and examiners. You'll get live lessons, exam tips, feedback, marked work, all for a fraction of the cost of private tutoring. It's smarter, more structured, and costs less than £12 an hour if you continue every week. These aren't just tutors, these are GCSE and A-level examiners, the people who set and mark the exams. And you're learning with other students, asking questions, getting feedback, and tracking your progress. Click the link in the description, sign up in 30 seconds, and secure your free trial spot. There are limited spaces, so make sure you register before the spaces go, and a huge thanks again to Lesson-wise for sponsoring this video. Tip number 2 is to block out time to study. People talk a lot about planning and stuff and how to make a good revision timetable, but this is the easiest step. To just plan out a time of day consistently every day where you can just focus on your work. Maybe choose a time where there's less distractions if everyone else in the house is asleep or something. This is non-negotiable time and takes priority over everything else. Like for me, even when I'm not studying and there's just something I want to get done on a consistent basis, I just make it the first thing every morning. Before I eat breakfast, before I do anything else, I just spend 1 to 2 hours really locked in on that task. Because for me personally, mornings tend to be the time where I can get focused the most. So just focus in the morning on what you need to do, and only then can you focus on what you're going to do for the rest of the day with the hopefully lower priority tasks. And that takes us on to tip number 3, which is to make sure that when you're working, that you really are working. I recommend not having food next to you, don't have a YouTube video playing in the background while you're studying, that's useless. Instead, try and sit down for an hour and do nothing but studying. This comes back to tip number 1, because if you incorporate this way of going about your studying, you don't have to spend as much time studying, and instead you can have some proper downtime throughout the day, which I'm assuming you'd rather have. I also want to make it clear that when I talk about studying effectively and efficiently, I don't mean that you can skimp out on the number of hours that you study. If you feel like you can study more hours, then 100% go for it. Because the thing is, a lot of people tend to ask if the number of hours they study matters more, or how effective their revision is. And the truth is, the students who are going to do the best are the people who are studying the longest, and those hours are spent doing the most effective revision. So you just need to try and balance the two with obviously some breaks in between so that you can refresh your brain. But yeah, don't mistake working smart for being lazy. My next tip is to use a calendar for basically everything. Now we're getting into the more dedicated time management tips. Google Calendar and Apple Calendar work perfectly fine. I don't think anyone needs any more than that. But at this point, I pretty much run my entire life off of a calendar. When it was GCSE and A-level season, I would keep a little physical paper timetable, and I would plan out each individual task I wanted to get done for each day leading up to the exam. This was basically standard practice for me when I had an exam coming up. I would mark the big day of the exam with a big circle on my little paper timetable, and then the days leading up to it, I would mark when I wanted certain things done to just make sure I'm on track. Like maybe a week before, I wanted to have finished all the exam papers for that board. So then the last week, I can just focus on the exam board I'm sitting the exam from. Something like that. Super simple, classic, OG way of timetabling, but it works. All right, now my fifth and final tip is to keep a day-to-day to-do list. I've been a digital to-do list type of guy for a pretty long time now. I feel like it's really easy to get lost on a day-to-day basis with what you're supposed to be doing. But if you just set out your tasks for each specific day, you have simple, obvious goals, and you know exactly what you need to do, then you'll be completely fine. I can understand if a physical to-do list works better for you, but any way of doing it works, just as long as you keep track of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Have a way to cross off things satisfyingly, and that'll keep you going. But that's all the 5 tips I've got for you guys in this video. Hopefully you guys found at least something in this video useful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.